Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. As you can see, I'm still filming from the world's smallest hotel room in Hong Kong. I can't wait to get home. Now, before I get started, I figured I'd start with a wristwatch check. And this is the Rolex Pepsi Bezel GMT. In my opinion, the best travel watch ever made. And it's been a great companion. Anyway, guys, I was having dinner with a good friend of mine who is also in the watch industry, and we started discussing a very interesting topic, which I thought would be perfect to turn into an episode. And we were discussing a little bit the state of the watch industry, the fact that sales are, nowhere near as good as they were a couple of years ago. In fact, it's a little bit of a mini crisis, should we call it, especially in the high-end sector. And this is due to many socioeconomic reasons. About 65% of the watch buyers on the East Coast are actually Chinese. 60% of the dollars spent, not necessarily the watch buyers. So you've got Hu Jinping, he's the new president of China, has cracked down on corruption. So, the Chinese aren't really buying. You've got the Swiss franc, which has been depegged from the euro, which has caused it to kind of gain a ton of strength. And by that token, exports have gotten extremely expensive from Switzerland. And, there's a few other socioeconomic reasons as well. Point being, very few brands, if any, are growing. And we came up with a list of 3 brands that have really gone against the trend and have shown fantastic growth over the past few years. And I thought that would be a great thing to share with you guys. The first brand I wanted to talk about is Montblanc. Now, Montblanc is a Swiss-German watch manufacturer, and it's owned by the Richemont Group, which is a group that owns many other great watch brands like Vacheron, Cartier, Panerai, Piaget, Lange & Söhne, so on and so forth. And Montblanc was positioned as the most entry-level brand on their pyramid below Baume & Mercier. Now, when the Swiss watch industry kind of went into a downturn, Richemont said, well, listen, we got to do something. Let's experiment, let's experiment with this new strategy. And they chose Montblanc to do this experiment with, because it's a little easier to change the way a brand operates if it doesn't have that much legacy, as well as if it goes badly, you didn't just destroy Vacheron Constantin. So, Montblanc was chosen as the perfect reason or the perfect brand rather, to do this experiment. And what is this experiment, you may be asking? And that is the value proposition experiment. Now, the first thing they did was they installed a new CEO, and his name was Jérôme Lambert. And now that might be familiar because he was a CEO of JLC, one of Richemont's fastest growing brands, and one of the superstars of the Swiss watch industry. And he took with him a lot of his JLC kind of DNA and ideals with him to the brand. So Montblanc, what they did is they moved it a little bit more upscale, so just above Baume & Mercier, instead of, very entry level. And they decided to do 2 things with the brand. The first is make extremely classic designs a la JLC, very similar to what Jaeger does. So they can have a wide market appeal and, they can be liked by many people. Some people might find it boring, but, it's more classic, something, nothing garish or too innovative in terms of design. And at the same time, they would take some great complications and use the resources at Richemont with their high-end brands and put it into some lower price point models. So you've got a great value proposition, something that looks classic, looks great, has a wide appeal, with some horologically significant movements in pieces. And you know what? It worked fantastically. Montblanc started by buying another company. You guys might have heard. Their name is Minerva. They were a famous chronograph, or they are a famous chronograph manufacturer. They were independent, and now they're owned by Montblanc, and they use their movements. And I'm going to put a picture up here of a Minerva movement. Kind of their signature is this devil's tail on the movement, which is pretty darn cool. It's a very cool signature to have. And Montblanc has done a few in-house pieces as well, like their Nicholas Riusek chronograph line. So essentially, they just made pieces that would, broadly, would fit a broad range of people, mass market appeal with some great movements at cut down prices. And a lot of people, you might have noticed, and it's no coincidence, that they look very similar to JLC. The new World Time is almost like a twin brother of the Geophysique. But that's no coincidence. Jerome Lambert was JLC's most important CEO. So he certainly did take a few things with him when he went to Montblanc. And you know what? Good for them. They've exploded onto the scene. They're really, really growing. And you know what? I hope to have one in my collection soon. I think they make a hell of a piece. Now, the second brand I want to talk about is one that I don't particularly love, and I'll explain why. And that is Frederique Constant. Now, Frederique Constant also owns Alpina, but they are an independent manufacturer. They were created in 1988 by a Dutch couple, Mr. Peter Stas and his wife, while they were both, doing their MBAs in Geneva. Now, Mr. Stas was a huge watch lover, but, particularly Vacheron Constantin, actually. However, he noticed that almost all the watches he thought were beautiful or that he really liked, he just couldn't afford. So when he started Frederique Constant, his philosophy was to take these classic watch designs that were made famous by Patek and Vacheron and make them affordable. Now, when they started, they're a pretty boring company, honestly. Plain Jane, boring-looking dress watches, but in the past 4 or 5 years, they've exploded onto the scene, and for a lot of good reasons, I think. They make some really beautiful pieces. Look at the slimline moon phase, particularly with that blue dial. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous watch. Or their new in-house movements. About 50% of their collection is in-house. They make the in-house World Time, which was a huge hit, as well as the in-house Tourbillon. Now, the company does do a few things that I don't particularly agree with. Mainly, it's the fact that they use a lot of gold plating. Now, it's not really a snobbish reason why I don't like gold plating. It's not the fact that it's deception or anything like that. It's just that it goes against everything I believe in when it comes to watch collecting. And that is, a Swiss watch should last forever. It should be given down generation to generation. It should last forever. And gold-plated pieces just do not last anywhere near forever, which I think is a little short-sighted. It was done a lot in the 60s, even with stainless steel, when companies used cheap steel and chrome-plated them. And I think it just goes to show that they're not really interested, Frederique Constant isn't interested necessarily in longevity, but more in cashing in on people wanting gold pieces. Yeah, nothing particularly wrong with that, but it's not not a philosophy I love. And the third brand is kind of an obvious one, and that is Tutor. Tutor is an interesting one. Tutor is owned by Rolex, and I'm sure you guys can see a trend here, and that is, the trend is the fastest growing brands are usually down market. It's a lot easier to sell a $4,000 Black Bay than it is a $9,000 sub nowadays. And since, companies like Rolex and Richemont are selling less of their high-end pieces, they have to make up the profits by selling some lower-end stuff. Now, Tudor was a brand that was very stale for a long time, particularly in recent memory. Especially when they left the U.S. in about '94. And their resurgence ties in together with when they came back to the U.S. in about 2013. And that is with the launch of some key watch references. The Tudor Black Bay, the Pelagos, and the Heritage Chrono. These are the three pieces that brought Tudor back. Because to be honest, guys, the rest of their line, no one's buying Fast Riders or Classics, maybe a Ranger or two, but the rest of the line is pretty much irrelevant and insignificant. So those three kind of watches brought Tudor back from the brink, and as you can see, they're doing really well. I mean, the Black Bay is a massive hit because you're getting a little bit of that Rolex heritage and quality for half the price in an economy where people aren't willing to spend insane amounts of money as they used to. So, the big thing nowadays is the value proposition. That is what is making brands grow. Good pieces at a good price. And you can see a lot of brands starting to do this. I mean, what was it? Vacheron Constantin just came out with the new Coup d'Île, which is in steel. It's never been in steel before. They've lowered the prices in some of their pieces. So it's all about price, which is a little sad to me because I kind of, I'm more used to the Swiss watch industry when it was uber luxury. Not that I could afford those pieces, but, every year I was excited to see what the new crazy Patek was, the new enamel dials, the new complications. It was very innovative, even though it was price prohibitive. However, this new climate of value propositions and lower cost and wide market appeal isn't necessarily conducive to innovation, shall we say. But it's not forever. So anyway, guys, what did you think of my list? Leave a comment below and let me know. And please drop a like if you enjoyed this video. It really does help. And don't forget to subscribe right over here. Because, I'm going to be back to New York soon. And the content is going to be a lot more regular and hopefully a lot more high quality. Because I'm going to have my lights back and my normal setup back. Anyway, guys, thank you for sticking around for another episode of Federico Talks Watches, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.